Greetings and salutations all, and happy October. Yes, I am Elias Sanderson, and I hope you like that new little intro thing. I'll be using that all throughout October because it is the month of Halloween, and I do plan on doing some Halloweenish things later on, including mythology time. That includes maybe gods of the underworld, and I'm also going to be reading a book called Hell House, so I'll tell you all about that. It's supposed to be pretty good as far as horror goes. But in the meantime, let's talk about a Game of Thrones slash Song of Ice and Fire, like many of you have requested I do. Just want me to do something on Game of Thrones again. So let's go ahead and talk about some theories and what I think those theories mean and my future predictions of the series thus far. So just to remind everybody very quick, there will be some spoilers in this. If you have not read all the books up to this point, you'll probably be spoiled on a few things. And I will be talking about theories and predictions that I have for what's going to come up in the series. So just be forewarned of that. And if you're fine with that, cool. If not, then well, I have other videos you can watch. Really, check them out. So first, we'll talk about the Maggy the Frog prophecy. That prophecy being centered around Cersei being told that she would become queen, and then she would have 3 children of her own, and those 3 children would all die before her. And a beautiful younger queen would come and take everything she held dear, and then she'd be strangled by the Valonqar. Okay, so, I mean, Cersei, at this point in the story, she's quickly becoming irrelevant. So I don't think her story is going to last so much longer. Is she going to be around in the 7th book? Maybe, maybe not. But as far as, this prophecy going, I think it will pretty much be played out for the most part. One of her children is already dead, Joffrey, thank God. Yay. So Myrcella and Tommen. So Myrcella, she's already had a close call with death. That doesn't mean she still can't be killed. Tommen, we have no idea what's really going to happen to him. He's the king, he's safe, but there's already plots to take his kingdom from him. Now, the ones that seem to be plotting the most against the Lannister family, or Cersei and the Lannisters as a whole, I should say, would be the Martell family, mainly Prince Doran. There seems to be this whole master plan of basically his family taking over the Iron Throne, and the person that he actually plans to place on that throne would most logically be his daughter Arianna Martell, because she seems to be the only true-born child that she has, the only true-born children that could possibly take over the throne. So I think that, as far as this queen that's supposed to take over, I think Arianna Martell is supposed to be this queen that takes over. Yes, a lot of people thought, well, it was Daenerys. The thing is, I think by the time Daenerys gets over to Westeros, it's going to be pretty late in the game, and I think, the whole Cersei plot is going to play out by then, by the time Daenerys gets over. So I think Arianna Martell is going to be the queen that ends up taking, basically taking everything from Cersei. Now, we do know that Doran, he does have a special job for Arianna, and that probably is going to involve going over to Westeros. And part of the prophecy of Maggy the Frog said that the younger and more beautiful queen would take everything from Cersei. Arianna, she's definitely a lot younger, and if you read the books and just see how Arianna is described, there seems to be a very strong emphasis on how beautiful she is. You could also say that of Sansa and Cersei herself, really, but I don't think it's stressed as much in anybody as much as it is Arianna. And I think Martin did that for a reason. So I think, yeah, Arianna Martell is going to be the queen that takes everything. Now, as far as the Valonqar goes, the Valonqar is supposed to be a younger brother that literally kills Cersei and strangles her. A lot of people are thinking, well, it's Tyrion, which would make a logical choice. It's what Cersei thinks, but the thing is, it's too obvious to be him, and a lot of people are saying, well, Jaime's actually younger than Cersei. He was born after her. True, and I guess Jaime would have a reason to strangle her because they're growing, apart, estranged, but still, I'm not quite sure it's convinced it's Jaime because, again, it's too obvious. Now, a couple things we got to take into consideration. It doesn't necessarily have to be Cersei's little brother. It could be somebody else's little brother. So at one point I was thinking it was Stannis because Stannis is Robert's little brother, and he would have a reason to kill Cersei if he got the chance. Because, I mean, he would eventually figure out that Cersei is responsible. But that seems a little bit out of place. I mean, Stannis, I mean, he seems a little bit too busy, and he doesn't really seem too preoccupied with, what actually happened to Robert. Plus, Robert's death means that he gets to be king, so he's probably counting that as a blessing. So he'd probably be thankful to Cersei. So who is this Valonqar that's going to eventually kill Cersei? Well, who has the most motivation to really kill Cersei? I mean, at this point, there's no point in killing her for political reasons because Cersei, I mean, she's pretty irrelevant at this point. I mean, she's on trial. She's maybe the queen. She's not really the queen regent anymore. I mean, Tommen, her son, probably won't be on the throne too much longer. And if Tommen is the one that ends up, if Tommen does marry Arianna, and she would do that strictly, to be able to be in position to take the throne. I think Tommen, for the most part, is a bit too young to really appreciate Arianna's finer points, if you will. Basically, what I'm thinking of is who the Valonqar is. Well, as we know, Arya, she's over in the east, and she's training with the Faceless Men, and she is learning how to change her face. And she's already taken a couple different personas. She's taken the persona of the ugly girl, and next she's going to take the persona of the pretty girl. She's taken on other names. I mean, they always ask her, "Who are you?" She says, "Nobody," which means basically that she has to give up her past and that she could be, become any person at any one time. I mean, why couldn't Arya take the persona of a boy? Why couldn't Arya take the persona of the Valonqar herself? Be just playing somebody's little brother, and she gets in. And plus, I mean, she has a personal stake in killing Cersei. Cersei is one of the names that she says every night before she goes to bed. So yeah, she would be the only one to really have anything to gain by killing Cersei at this point. So why couldn't Arya just take on the persona of the Valonqar and just strangle Cersei herself? So Azor Ahai, the prince that was promised. Let me read how this prophecy goes here. There will come a day after a long summer when the stars bleed and the cold breath of the darkness falls heavy on the world. In this dread hour a warrior shall draw from the fire a burning sword, and that sword shall be Lightbringer, the red sword of heroes. And he who clasps it shall be Azor Ahai come again, and the darkness shall flee before him. So that quote that I just read was from Melisandre, and she has been known to sort of been off about Azor Ahai before. I mean, she at first thinks Stannis is Azor Ahai, so she sets up this elaborate, ceremony that takes place on Dragonstone, and he pulls the fire, flaming sword out of the maiden and all that stuff. And so she kind of manufactures him as Azor Ahai, so that's why I don't think there's any chance it could be Stannis. Because, I mean, he was pretty much declared as Azor Ahai right from the beginning, and, he was in a manufactured ceremony. It didn't happen naturally, so, of course, there's no way it could be him. So who actually is Azor Ahai? Well, first of all, let me just say that my opinions are based on, I mean, everybody else is, a reader of the series or, really big fan. I mean, I am a fan and reader of the series, don't get me wrong. But I really take the perspective of the writer. I mean, when I read the story, I, always think of, well, why does the author do this? Why does the author do this? So there's a few things you need to keep in mind. First of all, I don't really think that Martin would put such a great importance on a character that doesn't show up until, like, the 5th book in a 7-book series. I mean, I'm pretty sure that Azor Ahai would have to be somebody that was there right from the beginning and just didn't know it the whole time, and then, finally reveals his, this is Azor Ahai. Oh, cool. Second of all, there is a possibility we may never have a really definitive answer as to who Azor Ahai is. I mean, obviously, the White Walkers are going to come down, they're going to be fought off, there's going to be this big battle against them, and there are going to be key players in it. But that doesn't necessarily mean there'll be a definitive, yes, this person is Azor Ahai, this person must lead the armies. And So I mean, there's a very good chance that will happen, but there is that slight possibility that we'll never really definitively know. We'll just have to speculate, but I think we probably will know. But you know, again, George R. R. Martin, he might not necessarily think, well, nobody really needs to know per se, but we'll probably know. So let's quickly go over the requirements. Apparently, they have to be born of King Aerys' bloodline. Okay. They have to be born or reborn amidst salt and smoke. Okay. They have to have a flaming wielding sword called Lightbringer, or just have some sort of flaming wielding sword. And they have to be reborn or born around the time of the Red Star bleeds. And they also have to awaken dragons from stone. Okay. So when you go over those requirements, I mean, there's different theories and different people. There's some that think that Aegon, the character who we were introduced to in Dance with Dragons, who actually is supposed to be the son that of Prince Rhaegar and Lyanna, that everybody thought the Mountain had killed, but was actually ferreted away. Okay, well, that is a possibility, but I mean, again, going back to the writers thinking, he seems like a pretty minor character to just be brought in and say, oh, yep, here he is. Though that would make him part of Aerys' bloodline, being a son of Rhaegar, so that would definitely make him eligible for that, flaming sword. But, I mean, we don't really know what born amidst salt and smoke, though, and reborn, that seems pretty out there. That would have to be shoehorned in greatly, so I don't really think it's him. Another person who has been theorized to be Azor Ahai is Victorian Greyjoy. Now, the logic behind him is that he did sort of go through a rebirth, that he was, sick out to sea, and they had to burn his arm to cure him, and, it happened out at sea, so the smoke comes from him being cured, and the salt comes from the sea surrounding him. Okay. Though, is he a part of Aerys' bloodline? That's doubtful. I mean, Targaryens messed around all the time, so maybe he could be, but that's pretty doubtful. I mean, they would have to really do some clever maneuvering to make him part of the bloodline. Plus, I mean, Flaming Sword, don't see it. There is some people say that Azor Ahai has to be somebody that kills their spouse, and recently he apparently beat his wife to death, so okay, but he didn't do that to make a weapon as far as I know. Like I said, I mean, I know I haven't read those chapters. This is just what I'm skimming off other people. But still, I really don't think it's Victorian Greyjoy. I really don't think it's him. I mean, yeah, some things are sort of added up there, but I really don't think it's him. Okay, so one of the big theories is that Jon Snow is actually Azor Ahai reborn. And there are some really good arguments as to why it could be Jon. First of all, Melisandre, she goes into the fire and she, prays to her God, and she asks, who is it? Who is it? And all she sees is snow, apparently. So that could indicate Snow, and there's also some other things pointing him out. But basically, that's his Jon Snow. Now, as far as being part of Aerys Targaryen's bloodline, well, that goes back to the old R plus L equals J theory. So that means that there's a lot of people that think that Jon was born to Lyanna Stark. Yep, she was the reason that she was in a bed of blood at the Tower of Joy when Ned found her. So a lot of people, so that would make him, part of Aerys' bloodline. Jon also has a dream of him, running around fighting off the White Walkers with a flaming sword. Plus, he does have a Valyrian steel blade, which could easily, I mean, we don't really know exactly what Valyrian steel is fully capable of doing. We do know that it was forged by, the old Valyrians where the Targaryens originally came from. So maybe the blade could be set on fire, or there's a way to be set on fire, or if it had a cloth wrapped around it, yeah, you could set it on fire and it wouldn't burn it. But I mean, it can be melted down, though. We know that because the Lannisters melted down ice and made it into two different swords. So, but for right now, we'll just say that could be Jon's flaming sword. As far as killing a spouse goes, I mean, he did fall in love with Ygritte, and he is kind of a way responsible for her death. I mean, because he joined the Night's Watch and chose that instead of her. And when they attacked, when the wildlings attacked, she ended up getting killed. Though it wasn't directly by his hand, so you could sort of blame that on him, but not really. Plus, he never really did marry her, but she was the love of his life, and he was sort of directly responsible for her death. So we can count that. Now, as far as him being reborn amidst salt and smoke, the jury's still out on that, but we do know at the end of Dance with Dragons that he was attacked and he was wounded pretty badly and probably killed. It is possible Melisandre could bring him back, and there was people that were crying as they killed him. So there's the salt, and there's a good chance that castles are going to get burned down. There already was some flame, I believe, so there's smoke there. So he could be reborn against salt and smoke. It just hasn't happened yet. But now we come to the little question of how exactly is Jon Snow going to awake dragons from stone? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's something that still could happen, but quite frankly, I really don't see that happening. Plus, Jon, I mean, he can be burned. He's not impervious to fire, and we saw that back in Game of Thrones when he burned his hand, protecting Mormont from the White. So, is he directly Targaryen? Well, I mean, according to R plus L equals J, yes. However, there is a possibility that that could be a falsehood. There is a theory going around that actually he's the product of Ashara Dane and Brandon Stark. And I'll leave a link to those videos behind. The creator does make some pretty good cases as to why Jon isn't from Rhaegar and Lyanna, and he might be from other people, namely Brandon and Ashara Dane. But who was the child that Lyanna had? Well, some theories say that her child died in childbirth. I don't believe that for 1 minute. I mean, if her child did die in childbirth, that would pretty much make that whole thing completely irrelevant. And I don't see that being as completely irrelevant. I mean, Martin, as much as he does put filler in there, I don't think he would create up such a significant event that really haunted Ned for a long time just to have it be, have it mean nothing. Otherwise, I mean, if the child was stillborn, they probably would have established, yeah, Ned, he found the child and it was stillborn, and, so I don't believe for a moment that her child died. I think that the child is still alive. So who is that child? Well, according to the videos that I pointed out before, it's actually R plus L equals D. Yes, Daenerys Targaryen. Now, from what you saw in the videos that I pointed out, I mean, there is a pretty good case. It could be Daenerys. But the thing is, it's just, if you look at Daenerys, I mean, she has the very pale blonde hair, and she has purple eyes. So she is full-on Targaryen. Now, the common thing, the most known thing, is she's supposed to be the daughter of Aerys himself. So she's definitely from his bloodline. And apparently she was born on Dragonstone. And Dragonstone is a good place to be born amidst smoke and salt because it's an island, so it's surrounded by the sea, the salt water, and it has an active volcano on it, which apparently smokes a lot. So there is the smoke there, but apparently it's supposed to be reborn from smoke and fire, or salt and smoke. And who was reborn amidst salt and smoke? Well, Dany, she did go into that funeral pyre, and she was supposed to be burned, but she's impervious to that. And she was reborn as the mother of dragons. And this did happen right when the Red Comet was happening, when the Red Star bled. And the funeral pyre was burning, so there's the smoke. Plus, there was also the woman, I forget her name, but the woman that Dany placed in there to be burned alive. She was singing and then she was crying, so there's where the salt comes from. Now, as far as killing her own spouse, yes, Dany was married to Khal Drogo, and she did kill him herself. I mean, it was done out of love, but still, she killed him. Now, as far as the flaming sword goes, a lot of people think that her dragons are her flaming sword. And plus, her dragons did come from her husband's funeral pyre. And apparently, the original Azor Ahai, he attempted to create a sword, and he stuck his sword into his wife's to, temper it after it was forged. At least that's how the story goes. So the whole killing the spouse thing, Dany fills that requirement. And because of this funeral pyre, she does awaken dragons from stone. I mean, the dragon eggs were pretty much stone because they'd just been around so long. And she awakens the dragons from that, so she fills that requirement. So we've got the flaming sword, we've got the dragons from stone, we've got killing your spouse, and we've got definitely from Aerys' bloodline. Whether she's his daughter or granddaughter still remains to be seen. I don't know. I'm not sure which, but she's definitely part of his bloodline either way. So who exactly is Azor Ahai? I think it's Daenerys. Jon is a good possibility, but I definitely go with Daenerys. So during a Clash of Kings, Daenerys goes to the Tower of the Mages, and she has this vision. One of the visions is Rhaegar and Ilyana with their second child, and just say, oh, he's the prince who was promised, and his is the Song of Ice and Fire. But the dragon has 3 heads, so there's supposed to be 1 more. And then he looks directly at Daenerys. And so I guess you could sort of say that might point out, that she is Rhaegar's daughter. She's his 3rd daughter. So maybe the dragon has 3 heads is to do with more of Dany being Rhaegar's 3rd daughter, rather than the obvious thing would seem to be that the 3 heads is talking about 3 people need to ride Dany's dragons in order to go against the White Walkers, or maybe, but so there is that possibility. The other possibility I was thinking, well, if the dragon does have 3 heads, does that mean that there's more than 1 reincarnation of Azor Ahai? And then maybe Jon could be the other, and the 3rd. Well, if there is a 3rd, maybe Victorian Greyjoy, but I still don't think that. But no, I think the dragon has 3 heads. I think that's sort of a reaffirmation pointing to Dany as Rhaegar's 3rd child. So if the dragon has 3 heads, it has nothing to do with who's going to ride Dany's 3 dragons, against the White Walkers. So I mean, who are these 3 people? Well, Dany. I mean, we know that she's going to be one of them, and we know that she's going to be on Drogon, the Black One. I mean, she's had a bond with him. I mean, she's already ridden him, and she's already sort of tamed him. Plus, I mean, he does seem to be like the leader of the 3. So, plus the original Aegon, he had 3 dragons that were just like those 3. I mean, and he rode the Black One, so of course Dany's going to ride Drogon the Black One. So who's going to ride the other 2? Well, one theory is that Bran is actually going to become such a powerful skin changer that he's actually going to be able to warg into one of the dragons and control him that way. Plus, there was when he meets the 3-eyed Craven. I mean, Bran says, "Am I ever going to walk again?" He says, "No, you will never walk again, but you will fly." And I don't really think he would say that if that just meant, yeah, you're going to warg into some crows and they're going to fly around. So, yeah, I do think Bran is going to warg into a dragon. Which one? If I was going to take a guess as to which one, I think it would be the white one, Viserion. Because Viserion, I mean, he's sort of the cat of the 3. I mean, he is most cat-like, and I say that because, at the beginning of A Dance with Dragons, Dany's walking along their courtyard, and there's Viserion, the white dragon. And he's, just basically, sleeping. And she says, well, shouldn't you be out hunting with the other 2? And he's just like, and, he's quite content just, sleeping in the castle in the courtyard while the other 2 are out hunting. Plus, when Dany has, Viserion and Rhaegal trapped in the arena, has them chained up, Viserion, he's the one that likes to dig a hole and climb into it. Another thing the cats do. So, I mean, they don't dig holes, but they do like to climb into boxes into dark places. So I say that he's the one who's the most cat-like. So I think he would be the one who's most easily, controlled by a skin changer. So I think Bran is going to warg into Viserion. So who will ride Rhaegal? Who knows? I mean, a lot of people would like it to be Jon or Tyrion. I don't see Jon doing that. I mean, yeah, he is a sort of a game changer himself, but he's not going to be. I don't think he's going to be a particularly skilled one. The only animal that he's warged into so far is Ghost himself, and that's only because he's made that bond with Ghost. So he accidentally does it, but I don't think he'll ever truly learn how to be a real one like Bran will. Now, as far as Tyrion being the person who rides one of these dragons, I think that's just kind of like false hope on most people's part because, I mean, Tyrion, he is very well liked, but, his size aside, I mean, I don't really see him doing that. I mean, Tyrion, he does have a fascination with dragons, so he does study them a lot. Maybe he could help Daenerys with the taming of the dragons. Maybe he could read up on them and sort of help her with how she can control them and all that stuff. As far as riding one, though, I don't know. I mean, there is sort of a rumor going around that he is the daughter of his mother, Tywin's wife at the time, had an affair with Ares, or maybe Ares raped her, which is another good possibility. And that's where Tyrion came from. So I guess there is that possibility, but I don't really see Tyrion riding a dragon anytime in the story. So now, as far as who actually ends up on the Iron Throne, it really at this point it does seem like it's a little bit too early to really tell to make any solid predictions. I mean, right now the story seems to be branching off into who's going to end up on the throne, and how are they going to kill off all these White Walkers? Who's going to triumph in that? So, I mean, those of you who watch my videos know I really would prefer it if Daenerys was the one who ends up on the throne, and she gets to rule over the Seven Kingdoms, and it's the eternal summer starts, and everything's all hunky dory. And I mean, it probably won't be a completely hunky dory ending. It'll probably be like a good enough ending, happy enough ending. Some bad stuff went down, a lot of sacrifices, but happy enough ending. Probably be like that. If it's not Daenerys, then maybe it will be Ariana Martell that ends up ruling the Seven Kingdoms. What other possibilities? I don't think it's going to be Jon. Um, as far as what will happen with Jon, I think he is the one who's most likely to give his life in the end to make sure that the others don't end up taking over. I mean, that would seem redundant after he's already died this once and he's already been wounded and taken a lot of damage already in the whole series. But I do think he is probably the one who's most likely to have the heroic death and make the sacrifice to make sure that good prevails. Oh, Tyrion end up? I think he's going to survive. I think he is going to end up changed by this whole thing. I mean, by the time this is all over, I think he's going to be a lot more open-minded about supernatural things like magic and blood curses and grumpkins and all that stuff. I think he'll be a lot more open-minded about things like that. Will he have a rulership or anything like that, or will he just go off and spend the rest of his life worshiping the god of tits and wine? Maybe, but I think he'll come out eventually okay. Again, though, despite the fact that there's only 2 books left, we've still got a really long way to go before this series is over. So anyway, that'll be it for today. And please, leave your pertinent contact. My pertinent contact information is down below in the abyss as always. Please comment, rate, subscribe. You know the drill. And like I said, I will be doing other Halloween-related stuff throughout the month of October. I'll still have that same intro throughout October. So until next time, this is Azor Ahai telling everybody, make your lives great and have a good day. Thank you very much. Boo.